Hey guys, today we've got another exciting game of Revised 40. This time it's going to be myself on the left piloting blue-white control, and my opponent Martin on the right playing his version of mono-black. Martin starts things off this game with a swamp, into a dark ritual, and a mind twist for 2. Really fast mind twist from Martin here. He gets to discard 2 of my cards at random. And the discarded cards were 2 lands. Really bad for the control deck to be losing lands this early in the game. Martin on his turn 2 goes for a Black Knight and passes back to me. I play a Plains and a Soul Ring. Martin gets in for 2 on his turn, putting me down to 18. Passing back to Martin's turn, he gets in for 2 with his Black Knight, putting me down to 16. Martin again getting in with the Knight, putting me down to 14. The Black Knight does have protection from white, so really hard for the blue-white control deck to deal with, since Swords to Plowshares cannot even target the Knight. On my turn, I go for a Balance to try and get rid of this threat. Balance will of course make Martin sacrifice his creature since I don't have any on my side, and we both have equal numbers of cards in hand. At the end of his turn, Martin goes for a Drain Life for 3, so he'll deal 3 damage to me and gain 3 life. Passing back to my opponent once again, Martin tapping now 6 mana for another Drain Life, this one for 4. And this is met with a Power Sink. Power Sink counters the Drain Life, and I stay at 11. Passing the turn once more, Martin tapping out again for yet another Drain Life. I am at a pretty low life total at this stage in the game, so hopefully I have another counterspell, but it looks like I do not, and I fall to 6, putting Martin up to 28. Being at 6 life, pretty scary at this point in the game. That means that one more copy of Drain Life would be enough to kill me, and something like a Black Knight or even a Sengir Vampire would be very scary. Martin and I pass back and forth a few times, until Martin on his turn plays a Soul Ring. End of turn, I go for the Disenchant on the Soul Ring, seeing that Martin doesn't have a lot of other artifacts and enchantments in his deck. Martin on his turn going for a Bad Moon, which gives all black creatures in play +1/+1. And, wait, is that mouse again? And even though he doesn't have any creatures in play, I go for the Disenchant on this one. And I know that mouse is still there, but I'm sure it'll just go away by itself, right? Like eventually... yeah, okay, it's gone. Okay, serious mode. After a few more passes back and forth, I draw a 4th island, which lets me safely go for a double blue play while still holding up Counterspell. So in this case, I go for a Brain Geyser, where X is equal to 5. I was waiting on that 4th island to be able to resolve a Brain Geyser and still hold up Counterspell for something that Martin might have since I am at 6, but I have just drawn a lot of cards, so hopefully I've drawn into some interactive cards to stop Martin's threats. Martin now on his turn going for a Demonic Tutor. He does have a lot of lands to go for a Mind Twist, but he did already use it on his first turn during this game, so potentially looking at another Drain Life or a big creature threat like a Black Knight or a Sengir. Black Knight, even though it is just a 2/2, it is threatening to my life total because it can't be hit by Swords to Plowshares, so I would have to spend a counterspell to answer the Black Knight. And it looks like that is what Martin got off the Demonic Tutor. Now I need either a Control Magic or a Wrath of God, and it's that mouse again! Can I just cast one spell without that mouse ruining the play? Okay. Martin goes with a Hypnotic Spectre on his turn, which is really threatening to both my hand and life total, so I hit it with a quick Swords to Plowshares. This puts him back up to 30 life. We pass back and forth, and Martin goes for another Dark Ritual. We'll see what he can do with this mana. And a Korma Spell. Look at that. Big play from Martin here, so I do go for the counterspell on the Korma Spell. So on my turn, I play a Jayemdae Tome to get some card advantage and pass it back to Martin. Martin goes for a Lethal Drain Life on his turn, tapping 8 lands to drain me for 6. A Power Sink for 3 would do it here, so hopefully I have either that or just another copy of Counterspell. And if I don't, I can still try and find one off this Jayemdae Tome by paying 4, tapping it to draw a card. So Martin right now has 3 cards in hand, so I go for a Power Sink for 8. Now the only way that this doesn't work is if Martin has exactly 3 Dark Rituals in hand. He only has 3 cards, so he goes 1 Dark Ritual, 2 Dark Rituals, and 3 Dark Rituals.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
So the 3 cards in Martin's hand were the exact 3 that he needed to fight through this power sink and win the game off this drain life. Crazy play by Martin here. Could not have predicted that the last 3 cards in his hand were all Dark Rituals. Moving into game number 2, I'm going to be on the play on the left side of the screen there. Looks like both players decide to keep their hands. And I lead with an island and pass to Martin. Martin goes for a swamp into Dark Ritual and Hypnotic Spectre. One of the most powerful turn 1 plays you can have in Revised 40. This is going to start ticking away at my hand, so I go for a quick Swords to Plowshares. Martin on his turn 2 goes for a Black Knight, which does have protection from white. Martin gets in for 2 damage with his Black Knight, putting me down to 18. Martin plays a swamp and gets in for 2 with the Black Knight, putting me down to 16, and passes the turn back to me. I find my 5th land, so maybe we'll see a Serra Angel or something else here. But nope, looks like we just pass back to Martin. Martin gets in for another 2 damage with the Black Knight, putting me down to just 14. And on my turn, I pay 2 mana for a Balance, just to clear off this Black Knight. We both have the same number of lands, and I believe cards in hand as well, so this Balance really only kills the Black Knight. Looks like I do have more cards in hand than Martin, so I have to discard a Disenchant. Martin on his turn going for a Bad Moon, which gives all black creatures in play +1/+1. Too bad I just discarded that Disenchant. That would have handled this Bad Moon very nicely. On my turn, I go for a Jayemdae Tome to start looking for some answers or some finishers. Martin on his turn goes for a big Drain Life, and it does resolve, so that takes me down to 9 and puts Martin up to 27. After 2 or 3 passes back and forth with me drawing cards off Jayemdae Tome, Martin goes for another Drain Life. This time it'll be for 5. I go for a Power Sink on this one since Martin does not have any lands untapped, and my card reader has detected Taiga for some reason. There it is, there's Power Sink. Martin now with that second Bad Moon in play, I go for a Serra Angel, holding up double blue for Counterspell, and pass the turn back to Martin. Martin goes for a Drain Life, this time for 4. I go for the Counterspell to protect my Serra Angel, and the Drain Life is countered. I get in for 4 damage with the Serra, taking Martin down to 23 life, and pass it back. Martin's still looking for a way to kill the Serra, but doesn't find it, so goes for a Hypnotic Spectre. I go for a Swords to Plowshares on the Hypnotic Spectre so that I can continue to get in for damage with this Serra. I get in for 4 damage with the Serra Angel, taking Martin down to 23. Martin doesn't have any plays on his turn, so after a pass back to me, I get in with the Serra again. And on his turn, he finally finds a card he can play, which is a Black Knight. Serra Angel won't be able to block this Black Knight, so hopefully I have an answer for it. After some debate, I decide to go for a large Power Sink on this Black Knight. Martin does not have enough mana to pay for it unless he has a Dark Ritual, which he does, so he Dark Rituals to pay for the Power Sink, and the Black Knight resolves. Back on my turn, I attack Martin for 4, putting him down to 15. And it looks like a Control Magic, which will steal Black Knight to my side of the board. Black Knight only has protection from white, so I can take it to my side with a blue card like Control Magic. Martin on his turn now going for a Dark Ritual into that Korma spell again, which will turn all of his swamps into 1/1s. Martin does have a lot of swamps in play, and I am only at 9. His hand is empty, so no triple Dark Rituals this time. So I count up his mana and go for a Power Sink. This one is going to let the Korma spell resolve, but it means that he can't attack me with the swamps right away. Back on my turn, I attack with the Serra Angel and the Black Knight. Black Knight does have First Strike, so Martin could block it with one of his swamps, his only untapped swamp. Decides to block with the swamp on the Black Knight and takes 4, going to 11. And I go for a Wrath of God, which will clean up all of Martin's swamps and my Serra, but now with Martin having no access to mana and no hand, I'm feeling pretty confident in my ability to take down this game. Martin just on top deck mode looking for swamps and anything to play, and scoops it up. Martin gets to kick us off for game number 3, and unfortunately I have to mulligan down to 5 cards. Martin making that even worse for me by going with a turn 1 Hypnotic Spectre off Dark Ritual. I play a Plains for the turn, and it doesn't look like there's a Swords to Plowshares for this Spectre. Martin goes for a Bad Moon, giving the Hypnotic Spectre +1/+1, and he gets to discard a random card out of my hand off the Hippie, and it hits a Power Sink. Martin passes back to me. A Balance would be really nice here. It would make Martin get rid of his Hypnotic Spectre and discard a lot of cards, but it doesn't look like I have it, unfortunately. Martin, on his turn, goes for a Swamp and plays a Soul Ring. This will make it even harder for me to counter his spells. Martin goes to combat and swings for 3 with Hypnotic Spectre, gets to discard another card at random out of my hand. This time it hits a Wrath of God. And on Martin's second main phase, he plays a Black Knight. On my turn, I go for a Soul Ring and pass it back to Martin. Not looking good here unless I can find a balance. Martin gets in for 6 and puts me down to just 8 life, and I have to discard a third card at random. This time, another Power Sink. On my turn, I go for a Jayemdae Tome of Desperation. Passing back to Martin, he goes to combat and attacks for 6, putting me down to just 2 life. Discards one of the remaining 2 cards out of my hand. And he hits a Counterspell. Also pretty uncastable at this moment, so seeing the writing on the wall, I scoop it up, and Martin takes down game number 3. Really quick game for Martin here. With the mulligan to 5 and the turn 1 Hypnotic Spectre, the blue-white deck really didn't stand a chance. Let's go over our most valuable cards for this game. At number 1 we have Dark Ritual for providing some insane luck for the mono-black side, as well as turboing out threats. Next up we have Balance, making a huge difference in game number 2. And lastly we have Drain Life for killing Sarah's and killing me. If you guys do want to see a deck tech for blue-white control, or want to see more games like this, be sure to check out the Revised 40 playlist. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.